And welcome to the City of Milpitas Planning Commission, June 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. Those that are online and wish to make any public comments, you could do so through Zoom. Just make sure you register on the via the link provided in the agenda. Those that are here and want to make any public comments, there are some cards over by the door. Fill out your name and then bring it over to our recording secretary, Ms. Medina. All right, first item business, Pledge of Allegiance. I'll be leading. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item, roll call. Ms. Medina.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and community members. I will now take attendance, starting with Commissioner Albana. She is absent this evening. Commissioner Awashthi.
Here.
Chair Chuan.
Present.
Vice Chair Sierradella.
Present.
Commissioner Galang.
Present.
Commissioner Medina Ashby. Absent. And Commissioner Mosen. Present. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Next item, conflict of interest declaration, City Attorney.
Thank you. I asked the chair and each committee member, commissioner, whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any item on tonight's agenda.
Ms. Medina, you want to go down the roll call?
Yes, I'll start with Commissioner Awasi,
None.
Chair Chuan,
None.
Vice Chair Sierradella,
None.
Commissioner Galang,
None.
and Commissioner Mosen. None. Thank you.
Let the record reflect no reported conflict.
Thank you, City Attorney. Thank you, Ms. Medina. Next item, approval agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting agenda for June 8th, 2022?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, motion by Commissioner Awasti.
Second.
And second by Commissioner Mosen. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mosen.
Yay.
Commissioner Awasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sierradella.
Aye.
Make sure you other button.
Aye.
And Chair Chuan is aye. Okay, so we have 5-0. All right, next item, approval of the minutes. Can I get a first, are there any corrections that need to be made? I do see one, but go ahead, Commissioner Mosen.
Oh, no, I was just going to approve it. I don't see any, you can make the correction.
I see one item that needs to be, so under conflict of interest declaration is City Attorney Martin De La Sanja should be Mike Mutalapasi. So, all right, so.
Move to approve.
Okay, can you state the move to approve with amended, stated amendment?
Yeah, move to approve with amendments.
Okay, got a motion from Commissioner Mosen. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second from Vice Chair Sierradella. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mosen.
Yay.
Okay, Commissioner Awasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sierradella.
Aye. Aye.
And Chair Chuan's aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Next item is announcements. I have one announcement, pretty key announcement here. So I'd like to wish Vice Chair Sierradella a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Right. Do any other planning commissioners have any other announcements?
Thank you, everybody.
Any announcements? Did you have an announcement? Okay. All right, planning director.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a couple of announcements. I believe all of the commissioners should have received an email from the city manager's office or from the city regarding the annual Commissioners Appreciation Event. It's coming up on Thursday, June 23rd. It'll start at 5:30 outside here on the plaza. And there will be, it's paired up with the State of the City address by Mayor Tran. And there will be certificates for those who have served more than a year on the commission, but everyone is invited to come and light refreshments. So please be there if you're available. We look forward to seeing you. Also, the following week, I believe it's a Wednesday, June 29th, 6 p.m., we have scheduled a neighborhood workshop, or excuse me, a community workshop for the Gateway Main Street Plan. The update is underway, and we're at a point where the consultants and staff need some input from the community. So they'll be reviewing the work that they've done on an existing conditions report. They've done some very nice graphics on the urban feel of Main Street and the Calaveras corridor. And they've also done some really interesting work on retail analysis. So all of that will be presented, and then they will be having a discussion and looking for input on strategies for the plan and the different opinions that people may have about the area and what they would like to see on the future of Main Street. That will be a virtual workshop, so you'll be available to tune in from home. But we'll send more information around as it's available, and we will be advertising that quite extensively in the community to get as much input as possible. And then lastly, I wanted to follow up on a conversation that I've been having off and on with the chair about training for the commissioners it's in accordance with AB 1234 and AB 1661. First one is regarding ethics, and the other one's for harassment. So we're working with the city clerk on possible online training that would fulfill the requirements for both of those training. And again, it's kind of in process, but we are working on it. As soon as we have more details, we'll let you all know. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, planning director. Next item is a public forum. Those interested are invited to address planning commission on any subject not on tonight's agenda orally via Zoom webinar. Speakers may provide their name and city of residence for the recording secretary's record, and comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the planning commission, and no action can be taken. Planning commission may instruct the staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. Ms. Medina, do we have any public comments, either from the hall here or online?
Chair, we have Mr. Bill Corby in the Zoom queue with his hand raised.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Medina. Okay. Okay, Mr. Corby, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Bill Corby. I'm a 30-year homeowner in Milpitas in the Hillview neighborhood, and an original and active member of the Milpitas Involved Citizens Group with a focus on quality of life. Our team has been communicating with certain people in the Planning Commission, including Ned, and having discussions on height limits and the discussion going forward. And there was a suggestion made, I believe it was in a communication back.
Excuse me, Mr. Corby, is the item you're asking about is specifically on the one of our public hearing items?
It's on the height limitation item.
Okay, yeah. So for the items here for this particular public forum is specifically for any items not on the agenda. You will have an opportunity to speak later on in the public hearing.
Okay, that would be fine.
All right. All right. Thank you. All right, Ms. Medina, do we have anyone else in and here in the queue?
Chair, there are no other community members in the queue
Thank
to
you.
speak.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. And head over to Planning Director or Mr. Fasadi.
Thank you. Before we jump in, I forgot there was one, I don't, it's not necessarily a change on the agenda, but I just wanted to point out that the second public hearing item, which is regarding a zoning text amendment for outdoor music, has been postponed or moved to your next meeting on June 22nd. So that is a change in the agenda. Well, not so much a change in the agenda. I just wanted to note that one of the items has been continued to the following meeting date certain. So under new business, this item, we have our senior planner, Michael Fasadi, here to present a staff report. It's a little bit different item than usually comes to the Planning Commission. We are during my time here, we have usually look at new items, new conditional use permits for new development. This one happens to be a review of a previously approved conditional use permit amendment, was approved back in 2015. And it involves compliance with some of the conditions of approval and a possible consideration of modifications to the use permit to address concerns related to public health, safety, and welfare. So Mr. Fasadi will give the staff report with the details, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of background to that, and I'll turn the time over to Michael. And there isn't necessarily a decision to be made on this item. It's for discussion only, and staff will provide some suggestions for actions that the different options that for actions that the commission might take. Thank you. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Director Thomas, and good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and fellow staff. I'm still waiting. Is the presentation up?
Ms. Medina is putting it up. There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. And this is a review for Sbc Liquors, which has a existing conditional use permit located at 1488 West Calaveras Boulevard. Next slide, please. The conditional use permit UA 15-0007 authorized Sbc Liquors, formerly known as USA Liquors back in 2015, to sell beer, wine, and spirits for off-site consumption. This is an image of the liquor store facility. Next slide, please. Here's a satellite view of the existing store, which is located north of Sarah Way and west of Abel Street in the Calaveras Shopping Center. Next slide, please. This store is located in the General Commercial C2 zoning district. Along with Sbc Liquors, there are two other establishments in the area, approximately a quarter mile away, that also have a similar Type 21 ABC liquor license. Those two establishments are Grocery Outlet and Milpitas Liquor, and this type of license allows those vendors to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits for off-site consumption. Next slide, please. But I'd like to just, and I thank Director Thomas for talking about it, I'd just like to give you a brief summary of the project and where we stand today. In July 2013, the city approved a convenience store, ABC Liquors at the time, to sell beer, wine, tobacco products, non-alcoholic drinks, and snacks at 148 West Calaveras Boulevard. This type of business is allowed what they refer to as a Type 20 business license or Type 20 liquor license furnished by the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control. We'll refer to them as ABC moving forward. In August 2015, the applicant proposed to upgrade that license to a Type 21, which would allow the store to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits, also known as hard liquor. This project was approved back in August 2015, and the Planning Commission requested that the applicant administer four improvements in order to allow them to sell distilled spirits. One of those improvements were to administer responsible alcohol beverage training, also known as RBS training, to their clerks and staff, to maintain the site free of litter and graffiti, to install video surveillance equipment for in and out of side of the store to in order to review the parking lot and behind the building, and to install no loitering signs. The Planning Commission also wanted the Planning Department to bring the item back for Planning Commission review after 6 months in operation, just to confirm if these improvements were completed. Our current planning staff, where none of us were working here in 2015, confirmed that the item was never brought back to Planning Commission for review. And furthermore, the department received a complaint from a nearby business owner that the proposed use was negatively impacting the business community. Therefore, our goal is to provide you, the Planning Commission, with an update. Next slide, please. So along with city requirements via the conditional use permit, the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control requires every person who sells alcoholic beverages in a convenience store to read, understand, and sign a clerk's affidavit. This is an example of what a clerk's affidavit looks like. The clerk's affidavit provides laws and liabilities directed to the store employees that they may face if they choose to sell alcoholic beverages to minors or intoxicated individuals. The information within the clerk's affidavit guides liquor store clerks on how to handle situations where either a minor or a person that is obviously intoxicated would like to purchase alcohol. In summary, it is illegal to sell alcohol to minors or a person who is displaying obvious symptoms of intoxication. The applicant demonstrated proof that both he and his staff completed clerk's affidavits when the staff did a site visit back in late May. Next slide, please. The second improvement was to confirm that the site remains clean, free of litter and graffiti. And staff visited the site on multiple occasions and confirmed the site is clean and graffiti free. As a matter of fact, this picture was recently taken of the store from the outside. Next slide, please. Staff third improvement was that the applicant installed video surveillance equipment, and staff confirmed video surveillance equipment was installed, giving the clerk visual access to outside the store. This is the example of the screen that's installed in the convenience store. Next slide, please. Lastly, multiple no loitering signs were located in the building, which was the fourth improvement required by the conditional use permit amendment. Next slide, please. Staff also reached out to the Milpitas Police Department and Alcoholic Beverage Control Department to determine if there were any issues happening at the site. And we were able to determine that there were approximately 10 calls of service received addressing concerns associated with loitering, arson, welfare checks for individuals in the vicinity, and drinking in public. A representative from ABC informed staff they have not received any formal complaints, but provided us direction on how to file a formal complaint if the Planning Commission directs us to do so. Next slide, please. In summary, the Planning Department is looking for direction from the Planning Commission on and if modification is needed for the current use. We've provided certain conditions you may entertain on placing on the applicant. But at minimum, we recommend you direct planning staff to monitor Sbc Liquors operation for at least the next 3 months, with another update to Planning Commission later this year. Although none of these conditions can be administered today or directed to us today, we want to provide the Planning Commission with these conditions that they may see appropriate to preserve the public health, safety, and welfare. If Planning Commission agrees to any of these conditions, a formal public hearing will be required, which will include public noticing to residents and business owners within 1,000-foot radius. All additional information can be found in the staff report. This concludes staff summary of the city-initiated review of the conditional use permit amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'd also like to let the Planning Commission know that Captain Matthew Miller from Milpitas Police Department is available to answer any questions. Furthermore, I believe after our presentation, if you do not have any questions for me as of now, the owners Chanranjit and Kevin Sandhu and their agent Ashok Babar have a short presentation they'd like to provide to the Planning Commission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fasadi. So at this time, if the applicant has or the owner has a presentation, you may present. Do we have the presentation, Ms. Medina? Okay. I'm assuming they're, yeah, come on ahead and.
Thank you. Is it okay to remove this or no?
Sure.
Before I present this to you and with regards to the conditional use permits, I'd like to make a couple of factual statements. And those are that we know our customers really well. We've been operating the business since 2015, 16, 2015, 15. And we do not sell beer, wine, or liquor to homeless people. We know our customers really well. And so for somebody to say that the cause of the issues is brought up because it's a liquor store. And again, we do not sell that liquor to somebody. There's an area behind the garbage containers, which is kind of secluded away where people feel like that they're not seen, and people kind of, the homeless people kind of gather there. Across the street also, there's litter, there's, homeless people and the complex across the street. But nobody's complaining about that. But also, that doesn't mean that we don't do our job. We are obviously doing our job. We think that we're doing it really well. And the presentation is about the 4 issues that were brought up, the concerns, and we're addressing those concerns. But again, I want to re-stress that we do not sell beer, wine, or liquor to homeless people. And we know our customers. So anyway, having said that, let me just, if you please go ahead and move down to the page. So these are the licenses that Michael had discussed, the training licenses. And as you can see that we have, done that training. And so that's, I think they were mentioning about the affidavit, clerk's affidavit. So we've done that. And if you go to the next one, which is litter and graffiti prevention, again, every time we open up the store, we make sure that there is no litter around during the business operation, whether it's closing or opening the store, we do that. And during the business hours, we're monitoring through the surveillance cameras that if there is anything, that we basically take care of it. Go down, please. The landlord, so we've also asked the person who actually cleans the store, and you can see in the photograph there, we keep our store clean, we keep the outside clean. There's a garbage can outside the liquor store just in case, people want to throw something out. And the landlord has also taken an additional responsibility to make sure that the areas are pressure washed, and as well as, remove any litter if there is any. Go down. You can see that the cameras actually switch over. You can go down. The cameras switch over to there's 7 cameras, and they switch over the views constantly. And here you can see that we can see all directions of the store, and we know who's going in and who's going out. And if somebody is going to take beer, liquor, or we know that it doesn't happen, and that's what we're monitoring constantly, that nobody goes around the corner to, use any as a consumption over there in the corner. The signs, the loitering signs are there, as Michael has mentioned. So this is just to say that we can put a couple of more signs up, but no loitering. But we are trying to comply any which way we can so that people are kind of happy about the situation. Further down. That's it. Okay. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Fasadi or the owner? Commissioner Milson?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Pasadi.
Okay.
I wanted to find out, it seems like I was on the planning commission when this was approved because I see my name there. I want to know what is the average call from other liquor stores for the police to come help out? Not for you, for Mr. Pasadi.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosen.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be honest, I don't have that answer. I would maybe address that to Captain Miller. Perhaps we can bring him aboard and he may be able to address that.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I'm asking is that you said that there are several phone calls to the police department. So I wanted to know, is this an average, or, that it can happen that some people can come and do mischief outside the store, not related to the owners. What is the average calls a month, a year, that the police department goes to mediate with other liquor stores? So we don't have an answer to that.
Well, first, if I may, I don't believe I said several. I said there was approximately 10 calls that happened between March 2020 and April 2022. If there was an average, I would probably address that question to Captain Miller, which is also in attendance via Zoom.
Okay. All right. And have we put any same conditions to other applicants in the previous years approving liquor stores, that they will have to come and give account?
I have not seen that. In 2015, I've been here for the past 6 years, and I haven't seen any liquor store that required a review 6 months after the improvements.
All right. Okay.
If I might add to that really quickly, just looking through the minutes of the meeting from 2015, I believe there was a copy included with the staff report. From the conversation, or at least from the meeting minutes, it appeared that there was particular concern at this location. It had operated for a couple of years as, for beer and wine sales and soft drinks and snacks and tobacco products. But the amendment in 2015 specifically added the sale of alcohol at this location. And that's why you see the conditions that were attached for loitering, to address loitering and littering. And I think there were some concern for this location because it is a little bit back around the corner, and as the owner, Mr. Sandhu, has indicated, they're up against a creek, and there's as you saw in the picture here on the screen, there's the driveway behind, and it's just in kind of a little bit of an obscure location. So I believe at the time, and again, I wasn't here, but I believe at the time it's clear from the record that the Planning Commission had particular concerns for the very things that we're talking about, loitering and littering, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just wondering, moving forward, since, okay, these are my questions. And then I have a question for you. It seems like they have put 4 conditions, like training your staff and keeping your facility clean, and you're complying with all of that?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from any other commissioners?
I think Captain Miller is here, and if he's going to take the call, then we might have some more questions.
Yeah. Actually, let me, Vice Chair had a question, right? Or was it for Captain Miller as well?
Yeah, I've just got a question for the captain. You said those 10 calls happened in the last 2 years. What about prior to that? Were there any calls?
Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and Commissioners. When I spoke with Mr. Fasadi on reviewing the calls for service, I actually looked back a little bit further, and to date, there have been 14 calls for service that were generated as a result of the unhoused individuals that are hanging or loitering in the area. And Mr. Sandu has actually been really proactive and diligent in most of those calls. He is the one who is calling us to report any issues with the unhoused individuals. And to echo what has been said already, the area that's on the screen now at nighttime, it's an actual area where a lot of the unhoused individuals will congregate. Just because it's secluded, you have the overhang that keeps them protected from the elements in the winter. And our officers are aware of that. And a majority of the calls for service are a result of our officers actually being proactive and making contacts with individuals there. So in looking at the data, we haven't been called too many times other than the 14, and a lot of the calls that have been generated have been a result of the proactivity of our officers in the area.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Wasi, do you have a question? Sorry, I thought I was going to go to Captain Miller and see if he had any comments, but thank you. But go ahead, Commissioner Wasti.
Yeah, I was looking at it says in the final, which says in the last page, 8 of 8, it says require Sbc Liquor to provide employees with RBS training annually. Is there a cost associated with that? And if there are no calls and there are no ABC requirements, but if there has been no complaints to ABC, then I think the new employees should be given the training when they join instead of getting it annually trained. It looks like we are adding a monitor for no reason when they have not done anything wrong. It's any small business. I have visited many small businesses when I was with economic development, and they're very, very stressed out. I own a small business too, and with employees, and had a tough time during COVID. And
excuse me, Commissioner Wasi, did you have a question or for Captain Miller or?
No.
Okay,
I was
probably towards the end, we'll go ahead and add any comments
right.
or any type of deliberations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I actually had a question for Captain Miller. Maybe kind of goes in line with Commissioner Mosin. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were asking, so in our report here, we have the police activity report that's currently, documented here. I think your question was also in comparison to other liquor stores. Is that correct? So maybe a question for Captain Miller. Like looking at the report that we have here, you said that, you've had in our report here, we showed 10 and you said there are 14. How does that compare to other liquor stores within the Milpitas area? I mean, is that about average? I think that's what she's asking.
Yes, Chair. I'd say that it would be about on average with other liquor stores throughout the city. And the actual type of calls regarding the unhoused individuals are pretty consistent. A lot of it are that there are subjects that are loitering in the area, and the store owners would like us to come out and move them along just because the signs are posted. Sometimes the store owners will call because the individuals are panhandling or they feel like they are harassing customers coming in and out of the business. And those are the types of calls that we respond to, as we're a very responsive department. And all of our store owners should be encouraged to call us, because we're more than happy to do that and come out and get the individuals to move along in order to help keep the peace and keep the clientele going and visiting the businesses from being harassed.
All right, thank you, Captain Miller. All right, Commissioner Wasi, you have a question?
Yes, when we have people hanging out there, when we are comparing liquor stores, various liquor stores, do we have the same problem around Safeway or Bevmore, the bigger stores? And do we get the same type of calls or from these, the same individuals who go around and hang out there, which looks like a collective problem and not associated with any particular liquor store or business?
Yeah, I would say Bevmo and Safeway probably not as much. The area of Sbc Liquors is across from grocery outlet on the other side of East Calaveras or West Calaveras there, and there's a group of unhoused individuals that frequent that shopping center as well. So I would say that that other side of West Calaveras probably generates more calls for unhoused individuals than Bevmo or Safeway does. But again, it's more because of the area where they are congregating or resting for the night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wasti. Thank you, Captain Miller. Any other questions from the Planning Commission? All right, Commissioner Galan.
Thanks, Chair. I have a question to the owner. How do you operate your video surveillance? Do you turn on that from time you open and then you turn it off?
No, so it's a 30-day recording, which is kind of continuous. And so it's on all the time, 24 hours.
It's 24 hours. So
Yeah.
I've noticed there's a picture there that you can see the license plate on the car was parked in front of your store, like in front of your main door. Is it clear? Can you read the license plate of the car when they park it there? How clear your video surveillance?
I think it's very clear. I mean, this was taken. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. So right here.
That one.
Yeah.
Can you zoom? Can you zoom that? Can you do-
It's. I don't know if you. I took a picture from the surveillance, from the display.
Mhm.
So it's not very accurate, but I think you probably can. I can't say for sure, but these pictures, the ones that I saw, they were very, very clear pictures. So I don't know if we can read the number plate or not, but we can certainly recognize a person who it is.
How old is your video surveillance camera? How old is it?
The surveillance.
We have a seven.
Yeah, but how old is it?
We replace one or two camera every year, but it's look at anything different, like.
If the quality goes down.
Quality was bad, then we change all.
There's a very important nowadays, the video surveillance camera that you check that from time to time.
And I think it's a good question. We don't mind replacing it with the new technology if that's what you guys want to do. Obviously, we want to help the community in any which way we can. And so that's not a problem.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah.
I'm doing from 36 years the liquor business. As a kid, I try to do all the time the best I can do, the best quality cameras, whatever. So if you guys need requirement for camera, but we have a 7 camera. I don't think any liquor store have that around the building.
Thank you, Commissioner Galan. Any other questions from the other commissioners? If there's no questions, do we have any comments or any feedback to planning staff here? Commissioner Mosen.
So are we looking in here to ask them to come back another 6 months to give us a report? Planning Director.
Thank you, Commissioner Mosen.
Yeah.
There's a number of different options I think available, and
Yeah.
what staff is looking for is that type of feedback of,
Yeah.
I guess, the liquor store operates under conditional use permit, so it's within the purview of the Planning Commission to review that permit if there are any issues or if it comes up. So, it's a well-established business, been operating for a number of years. They've met, the conditions, the letter of the law in their conditional use permit amendment in 2015, installation of cameras, installation of signs, the monitoring and so forth. And the training, I think, is the ABC training is really important too. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, we have received complaints about the issues just in the parking lot, harassment of some of the surrounding businesses. And I think it's really difficult. It would, the conditional use permit doesn't address the unhoused issue. And not only, and we're all aware of it, it's not only that drive anywhere in California and you'll see unhoused people. So I think it would be difficult to address that through the CUP. However, I guess what we're looking for is some additional ideas from the commission about how we might continue to monitor the situation and involve the police department as well. Maybe it's a matter of having more frequent visits or surveillance. And as I believe one of the commissioners had mentioned to me earlier when I talked to them that, word would get out that there's more active engagement with the police in this particular area, and the problem might move to another location where it's not involving the other businesses here. The other thing that I would suggest too, or keep in mind, is that the type of ABC license that the store has is type 20, as was mentioned in the report, which is it's specifically for the sale of alcohol for off-site consumption. And one of the complaints we received is that people are buying the liquor at the store and either drinking it in the parking lot or drinking it in their automobile. And that's not the intent of an off-sale permit, ABC permit. The intent is that they would buy it in, it's a packaged store, they would take it home and consume it there. So that might be an area where we could look at different options to address that. Everything from, in particular, a smaller alcohol bottle or single cans of even of beer and wine. If they're being consumed in the parking lot, it's not really within the spirit of the type 20 license. So they're part of our, if we were to continue to monitor the situation, 6 months seems a little long. I might suggest maybe 2 or 3 months, and then we would come back and we would monitor the situation, and we could come back with some ideas for amending the conditions of approval, tightening them up a little bit. Maybe I don't know, there's any, we depending on what we find over the next 2 to 3 months as we're looking at it more closely, we could come back with some suggestions and for changes to the conditions of approval.
So because of the type 20 permit, you're suggesting the individuals who buy liquor have to take it home. Are you guys talking to them and telling them this is the type of license we have? Please do not drink in the parking lot because it's going to mess up our license.
We have not seen anybody drinking outside. And of course, this is one of those things that we avoid, right? As an owner of a liquor store. And I'm sure Captain Miller would know that they don't receive calls because somebody's drinking outside. It's because of the people who are unhoused. Just like he's getting calls for the complex across the street. There are more calls coming from there than there are calls coming from our side, right? So it's not because it's a liquor store that the calls are going out. It's because basically unhoused people that are, sitting there. And it's a type 21 license. And every liquor store manages that. They basically make sure that there's no consumption outside the liquor store. And otherwise you don't sell them. And especially to those people. And like I said, when I first started talking about this thing, we know our customers, and we do not sell to unhoused people.
We see the bad people. We tell them, if we see you drinking around here, we're not going to serve you. That's why I call the cop too. If I see somebody sitting down drinking, I tell them to make sure they don't trespassing in this parking.
So, Chair, my question is, and to the planning director via you, is that if this is a standard practice for all liquor stores, that they have to come back within a certain amount of time to report to us because they're all having an average amount of phone calls for the police to help out, then it's fine. But if we are letting them come back after 3 months or 6 months, I feel like it's a hardship for a small business. So where do we go from here? How do we accommodate the city of Milpitas and the safety of the people in the community, as well as the business? Something that you can guide us and then we can move forward, because I think Commissioner Johan wanted to say something on the same lines. Yeah. Planning director can guide us. So
Planning director.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very good point, and I agree with you that we obviously need to be fair and consistent.
Yes.
That said, it is within the purview of the commission to review any use permit that's been approved, and are they meeting the conditions of approval? The reason we came back tonight is as we looked into this after we received a few complaints, we discovered that the conditional use permit had specifically in it that it would come back to the planning commission within 6 months. That should have happened back in 2015, but I think it was a period of transition within the department, so it never happened. So we felt like we were within the spirit of the law to bring it back to the commission today to have this conversation. And I think part of the reason for doing that was just to bring the issue to light. Now, staff is aware of it, the owner is aware of it, planning commission is aware of it. At first, that was one of my thoughts, is that just having that awareness and having a discussion, having out in the open would make everybody a little bit more aware that we need a little bit more diligence at this particular site. We wouldn't necessarily need to bring it back to the planning commission. If you were comfortable with it, we could just agree to continue to monitor the situation. City staff is in contact with ABC, the state level, all of the time, and they can, we can discuss if there are any issues, we can discuss with them. Now, when we have Captain Miller also involved, they can, we can work with the police department if they want to step up. As I mentioned earlier, the surveillance of the site, or the collaboration, the ongoing cooperation with the business owner, that may help as well. And I think one of the one piece to me, or the link that's missing here, is it a homeless issue? Is it related to the sale of hard liquor, of distilled beverages at this site? Is that related at all? We're kind of hearing two different things. We have one from the property owner, and then from the surrounding property owners, we're hearing a little bit of a different story. So as we continue to monitor, maybe we could get to the bottom of that and see what's really going on over there. The last thing I'll mention is I am aware that there are other surveillance cameras in that vicinity, or in that, and I don't know, does your camera record as well? Yeah, I think most of them do record, and if we needed to, we could take a look at some of that surveillance, and bring it back. When we were come back to the planning commission, we could offer some more information in that regard as well.
So I think the best procedure would be that they work with the police department and they do the monitoring. And if ever any issue comes up, you can educate us on it. But I feel like bringing them back again is not, it's small business, too hardship. It's a hardship for them. And since we're not doing it to all liquor stores, it seems very unfair that we are doing it to them. So I would like to say that they have to work with the police department, and the police can monitor the situation. And we do have a lot of this going on around the city, almost everywhere. And that's my suggestion. And since it's not something that we have to approve, this can you guys can take it into consideration and work with them. Through the chair, this is my suggestion to the planning director.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Mosen.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. So I realize this is considered new business. There's no vote. So in terms of direction, you're looking at from each of us individually to the planning department versus as a body, correct?
Either way, if others concur with the thoughts that Commissioner Mosen has shared, would be helpful. If there's concurrence there, then certainly that would be a very clear signal to staff of what we want to do. I might suggest that a little bit short of having, so it's not a burden to the business owner, short of having them come back in a formal way, we can continue, we meaning planning department, police department, we can continue to work with the property owner and others that have raised concerns over the next few months. And then instead of having a formal thing as part of my announcements, I could just, that we could bring it back under old business and I could just give you an update on what has happened. Have we had more complaints? Has the police department, do they feel like their proactive enforcement has helped the situation? What has the business owner, have they installed the additional signs? So I'll just give you an informal update if that's sufficient.
That's
for you.
exactly what I was getting at. Yeah,
Okay.
I would like that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Planning Director.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Vice Chair Ciardella.
Yeah, I guess I've got a question for the captain. Is there anything we can do? Because I'm pretty sure it's against law to drink alcohol in your vehicle, even if it's parked. Is that correct?
Yes, Vice Chair, that is correct. It's considered an open container if the vehicle is parked, and that is against the law.
Okay, then, I was going to say I too was on the commission when this was originally approved. But I'm just thinking maybe to remind people, you guys could put up a sign saying, hey, you can't drink or open up your liquor in your car. It's against the law. Do you think that would help? And this question's for the captain and you guys also, just to remind them.
That's what I do all the time. Like I said, if you see the people like that, I tell them, if I saw you drinking here, we're not going to serve you next time, and we're not going to allow you. That's what mostly we do. Even we walk around, if we see that kind of person, we tell them, better you leave, or I'm going to call the cop, or I do.
But I agree with you. We can put up additional signs.
We can put some more signs.
Yeah, just,
absolutely.
to remind people, I guess.
And
even though it seems like you guys really have a handle on it. And, I'm happy you guys are doing what you do with the folks that shouldn't be drinking anyway and, keeping a handle on it. So as far as this vote here is, I think you guys are fine. I really do.
thank you. I think you also wanted to ask the question from Captain Miller.
Yeah. And, you guys haven't had a problem in what? 7, 8, 9 years, till here lately. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Owasti, did you want to, I know you had comments earlier and I know because that at the time that was questions, but did you want to continue with your comments that you started to make from the last time?
Yes, I can go further. I agree with Commissioner Mohsin 100%. And what Commissioner Ciardella said, that it is always better that if some signs are posted that no drinking at site or even in your car or anywhere, and drinking and driving and is dangerous, and it'll be kind of a suggestion and a reminder. So that's putting up those signs doesn't help. You can't obviously tell every customer they're going to get engaged. We are here to do business. Yeah. So you can put up some signs. So that will be great. And I agree that a small business, as planning director Tom said, that we could have some kind of little bit of monitoring, but it should be fair to all small businesses, whether it's a liquor business or any other business. Everybody is operating under a lot of constraints, that they should be dealt equally. And if there is no complaints from ABC or anything like that, so we do not need them to come all the time and report to us for nothing. We could always send them a letter, or they can let us know that, okay, we are complying with what was discussed today. And I think, and unless we run into any kind of problem, then that could be taken care of, which is outside the purview of what we are talking today. that can be taken care of. At that point of time, they may have to come back or the police will deal with it. And it also says that we ask them for on-site security. I require, we can suggest if they think there is a need and the police, they can work with the police if on-site security is needed. On-site security is very, very expensive, but if the police department wants them and they also think it is needed for their employees and for their customers, that area is under threat or there's a lot of problems going on, that's a different issue. Otherwise, if everything is all right and the police doesn't want them to need on-site security, and so for a small business to have on-site security is putting again hardship on already hard-pressed small stores. And it also says that require Sbc Liquors to provide outdoor trash receptacle. But I saw in the picture that there's already
Yes, there is.
trash receptacle. So I don't think we need more than one unless it is needed. And if they keep on cleaning, as they say, that they keep it clean. And last but not the least, when it says that recommend that staff file a formal complaint with ABC enforcement to initiate a full review of the Type 21 license health. What do we have any basis of to recommend this for one liquor store that we file a formal complaint? On what grounds do we file a formal complaint with ABC enforcement to initiate a full review? Unless the ABC, they come and they check on their own. They have a staff which does, which goes to different stores, and I'm told, and I know for it that even they go to bigger stores and try to see that, and their people are busted also. And so unless there is something where a formal complaint is a very strong word for a small business who are giving revenue to the city, and do you want to comply with whatever conditions are there? And this is a little bit of, I find it very hard. So I don't think this is needed unless there is a strong complaint with us and we discuss it and then we go forward. Going through all of the whatever is written here, I don't see any basis why we should be, the city should file a formal complaint with the ABC. And at the same time, when Dr. Galang, Commissioner Galang brought up the matter for ask some questions on the security cameras, the owners on the first go, they said that if it is needed, we'll provide new cameras, although that was not even suggested, but they did it on their own. And so I think they're ready to comply. So this is my suggestion, and that we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wasti. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Galang?
Chair, I have a question to Mr. Posate.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Posate, regarding about the annual responsible alcohol training, you're talking about once they hired an employee, are they going to submit the training or affidavit or type of form that they attended this training? Or when they're going to start for that annual training? When the employee start to work, or you have to wait another month, 2 months before?
No, we train the employees as when we hire them, and the employee and Mr. Sun, we both, I mean, they both have the certification of the training, and so any employee that we hire, they're trained on what the laws are of ABC.
You submit that type of form to the city or to the
The training part is done with the ABC.
ABC?
ABC and the affidavit that you saw earlier. So those type of things have to be done. Yes.
How about you, sir? Do you?
Me personally.
Yes. You do
I'm
training?
I'm the agent, so I'm speaking on their behalf.
Oh, okay.
Also, like I said, I'm working from 36 years. I train myself and every day, 1 week, 2 week, make sure don't do this mistake, don't do this, check the ID. People run away, that's fine. But don't make the big mistake, it's the ID. Check the ID, check, don't sell it to the drunk people, this and that, because they're gonna drive, you see they have a car, don't serve them. That's my own training too, 36 years.
You're saying that if there's a drunk customer, and came to your liquor store and want to buy liquor,
I try to,
and you
my employee tell them, make sure, try to don't sell it. Because we don't want them to do accident or anything like that can happen. So we see he can box the plate or anything. Like, then don't serve. Yeah. Yeah. Then we call them.
Yeah.
As we do ourselves.
And many times the service is refused. Many times the service is refused because of the way the person looks or, just the attitude.
So what's the legal age that you can sell liquor? What's the legal age?
21.
21 above.
And that goes for cigarettes too, not just liquor.
18 or 21 to sell cigarettes?
Cigarette also 21.
21.
Used to be 18 last years they changed.
All right. No other questions? All right. Thank you. Commissioner Was, did you have a comment? You have your light on as well too.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah. And Commissioner Mosa, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Yeah, so comments, from me, just sort of what I'm hearing, just sort of maybe summarize, and then planning director, I'll ask you to help summarize as well too, at least the direction of planning commission. It sounds like, there was an informal update, correct? Like you were saying maybe in a couple months or something along that lines there. And then, with some monitoring, right? I mean, get these, and my own sentiments is like, I'm in agreement with the other commissioners that, these are small businesses and it sounded like from Captain Miller, this was not just one individual, site, but, other sites also have that. So in the sense you have to treat them, equally as well. But in summary, I'm hearing informal update, with monitoring, maybe in a couple months. And one other one I heard was just a sign to remind people about, not drinking in the car and drinking around the facility there. So that's what I'm hearing. And planning director, if there's any comments you have on what the planning commission is in the direction there, if you're in agreement there.
Yeah, I think we have what we need. And the notes I have were exactly what you just read back to me. So
Okay.
I think we're in sync. We have the information. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Thank you.
All right, with that item, I think this is not a public forum hearing item, so I'm not going to open that up there. So with that, did you have a comment, City Attorney?
Even though it's not a public forum, I do think you have to open it up to public comments.
I don't.
Did you open up to public comments in the beginning?
I did open, I didn't have any public comments for this one here. And, currently right now, I don't see any hands up in here.
Okay.
So, okay.
I think just in general, you have to ask if there are public comments. And if there are none, state that for the minutes.
So it doesn't look like there's any public comments. There are no public comments here. Is that correct, Ms. Medina?
Chair, there's none in the queue either.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Medina. All right. With that,
Close public hearing.
I'm sorry.
Move to close public hearing.
Thank you. Okay, got a motion to close the public hearing. From Commissioner Mosen, do I have a second?
I don't think you need to close the public hearing. You just had to hear comments.
Okay, yeah, because this one's not a public hearing item, so thank you. All right, with that, I think we can close this item here and move on to the next. And I want to thank the applicant. And I'm not sure, is the next item, doesn't sound like that we need Captain Miller for the next item. Okay, I want to thank both the owner and Captain Miller. Thank you for your time, and Mr. Fasadi, thank you. So we'll move on to the next item, the public hearing item, the zoning text amendment, planning director.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item under public hearing on tonight's agenda is a zoning ordinance text amendment. It's related to building heights. And we have our senior planner, our other senior planner, Lillian Van Hoa, here to provide the staff report. And just by way of context is staff is currently working on a number of zoning, I call them ad hoc zoning text amendments. We are working toward, and we're funded to some point initiate during this year, a comprehensive update to our zoning ordinance. But in the meantime, there are a number of issues that have come up either at the council or with staff that we feel can't wait. That will be probably a year, 18-month process. So I think right now we have like 5 or so zoning text amendments that we're currently working on. This particular one on building heights, I believe the request is Mrs. Van Hoa will discuss, came from the city council. And we've been working on it for a number of months. We also have a consultant, Holly Pearson, who I believe is here with us tonight to help with that as well. But I just give that as way of introduction because over the next few months, we'll be bringing a number of similar small zoning text amendments to you. So this is the first one. And it has generated a fair amount of interest in the community. In fact, it really the idea was, I believe, initiated in the community and then came up through the council to staff. So we're happy to bring this one to you tonight. I'll turn the time over to Lillian for the staff report.
Thank you, Planning Director. Ms. Van Hoa.
Thank you, Director Thomas. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and fellow staff. As mentioned, the item before you this evening is a city-initiated zoning text amendment for non-residential building heights in the city's commercial zoning districts. Next slide, please. Based on the direction received from City Council, staff has prepared a draft zoning ordinance text amendment to address community concerns about maximum building heights in certain commercial zones. The proposed zoning ordinance text amendment would modify and add regulations related to maximum building height for non-residential buildings in the general commercial C2, highway services HS, and town center TC zoning districts, and modify a provision conditionally allowing a maximum height of 75 feet or 6 stories in the C2 and TC zones with approval of a conditional use permit, subject to specific findings. The proposed amendment also adds clear and objective criteria and findings for approval of a CUP to allow additional building height. Next slide, please. The proposed ordinance would amend the following sections: Title 11, Chapter 10, Section 5, Subsection 3, Commercial Zone General Development Standards, and Subsection 4, Commercial Zone Special Development Standards, as well as Title 11, Chapter 10, Section 2, Subsection 3, Definitions, and Title 11, Chapter 10, Section 57, Subsection 4, Conditional Use Permits and Minor Conditional Use Permits. Next section, or next slide. Currently, the zoning ordinance does not specify a maximum building height in the general commercial C2, highway services, HS, or town center TC zoning districts. The proposed zoning text amendment would add a maximum building height of 35 feet or 3 stories for these zones, as well as allow additional discretionary building height beyond the proposed maximum building height with approval of a conditional use permit. Next slide, please. There is one exception or caveat to the proposed zoning text amendment. The general, and where staff is noting this for the record, the general plan allows mixed use developments with up to 40 dwelling units per acre within the town center zoning district. The state density bonus law and the Milpitas Municipal Code section 11, chapter 10, section 54, subsection 15 allows housing projects that meet the minimum affordable housing requirements to utilize concessions and waivers from development standards. And maximum building height is a development standard that is eligible for a waiver under the state density bonus law. Next slide, please. The zoning text amendment will include more descriptive criteria for the Planning Commission to consider when allowing for increased building height. The Planning Commission will take into consideration the width of the right-of-way of the principal street, proximity of the site to low or medium density residential zones, building setbacks in relation to proposed building height in excess of 3 stories or 35 feet, and upper story setbacks. Next slide, please. The proposed findings for approval for increased building height are as follows. The design, location, size, and bulk of the proposed building is compatible with the existing and allowed future land uses in the vicinity. The building's design provides an appropriate transition in scale to structures in adjacent residential districts. The building's design minimizes shadows on public sidewalks, public open spaces, and solar facilities on adjacent parcels through step backs at upper levels or other design elements. Next slide, please. The zoning text amendment also includes a deletion of an existing provision in the definition of floor area ratio, also known as FAR, that allows an increase in the maximum permitted FAR with approval of a conditional use permit. The purpose of this change is to avoid conflicts with the new provision for discretionary increase in building height. Staff will be working on a separate zoning text amendment to address a discretionary increase in the FAR. Next slide, please. The introduction and adoption of this ordinance is not subject to review under the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, pursuant to CEQA guideline section 15061B3, also known as the common sense exemption. And as a separate and independent basis, the project is exempt pursuant to CEQA guideline section 15183, projects consistent with general plan, community plan, or zoning. Next slide. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and close the public hearing, consider the exemptions in accordance with CEQA, and adopt resolution number 22-006, recommending that the City Council approve zoning text amendment ZA 22-0002, amending sections of Title 11, Chapter 10 of the Milpitas Municipal Code to modify and add regulations relating to maximum heights for non-residential buildings in the general commercial C2, highway services HS, and town center TC zones. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Van Hoa. Do I have any questions from any of the planning commissioners? No questions. Oh, Commissioner Mosen.
Yeah, since we are looking for questions here, is this something that we can give our input in, or this is just for our education?
This item is for discussion by the Planning Commission, and then there will be a vote on a recommendation to the City Council. I will note that the process that we've set up for this one is that we wanted to hear from the Planning Commission first and get your, if you have any recommended changes or things that you want to have considered, and then we will be taking this item to the City Council for an informal discussion just next week. And we wanted to have this discussion tonight, Planning Commission, so we could take your ideas to the council. Because there are no council meetings in July, it will then, we're scheduled to go to the council for adoption in August.
I don't know if this is the right place to mention this or not. I was looking up online regarding developments in other cities and heights and dense building and dense neighborhoods are coming up everywhere. Boston, Michigan, places like that, everywhere. But I saw in there, this is for the planning director via chair, is that I saw that since it's such highly densely built areas that they're adding outdoor bathrooms for public use because it's such a heavily populated area, and the Midtown plan also is like a walking street. So is there something to that nature that we can add in here?
Through the chair. Thank you, Commissioner Mosin. That issue would not be directly related to the building heights tonight, but we definitely are looking for that type of input on particularly on the gateway plan on the 29th. And then, and then later as we update the overall zoning ordinance, and we can entertain that at that time.
Yeah, that's why I was so unsure if I can even bring that up. But, you guys are here and you're thinking of the holistic plan. Maybe that's something for you to work on moving forward. But yeah, I'm good with this. Thank you.
Yeah, and Chair, if I may, I should have explained at the beginning that I mentioned that this originated with members in the community, and their particular concern is preserving views of the hillside, which is a unique feature in Milpitas. And so that's why we looked, we could have handled that as part of the comprehensive update that's coming later, but we wanted to, the council had directed us to do that sooner, so we brought it now. And as we looked at how to do that as efficiently as possible at this time, we noticed that the way that the zoning is in Milpitas, that there are just a couple of different zoning districts where when we looked at the zoning ordinance, there, as was noted in the presentation, there isn't currently a maximum building height. The building height is actually determined by the floor area ratio, and it's set up in a kind of an odd way in our zoning ordinance. So working with our consultant, I know, and Holly may want to chime in, and she looked at a number of different cities and how they regulate building height. And we noted that in these particular certain zoning districts, and Lillian identified those as highway services and the C2 and then the town center. Those are really the districts that needed to be addressed. And then we looked at these other cities and how so that we're not regulating it through the FAR, we looked at other cities and how they actually regulate height. And then we dived into our zoning ordinance to come up with a way of regulating it according to, I would say, current zoning practice. And Holly, I don't know if you want to mention some of the other cities that you looked at, I think, or actually we looked at that, I think, for outdoor noise, which is another ordinance that we're working on. But I think for this ordinance, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about your process for how things work together.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good evening, Commissioners. Holly Pearson, consultant to the city. And my recollection is that there was fairly clear direction either from the city council or just from Director Thomas about 3 stories or 35 feet being an appropriate height limit for commercial buildings in those zoning districts. In terms of looking at other cities, mainly what I looked at was examples of how other cities allow discretionary increases in building height beyond the maximum that is permitted by right, which, as you've heard from Lillian, we've incorporated into this ordinance. And the cities that I looked at, if you'll give me just a moment to open up my notes. Let's see. Okay. I generally, when we're looking at changing the zoning ordinance, I try to look at other Bay Areas, comparable Bay Area cities or Northern California cities. I found some good examples from the city of El Cerrito, the city of Oakland, the city of Santa Rosa, and then interestingly, Salt Lake City, which is not out of state, but they had some interesting approaches too. Those were the ones that I took notes on.
And Commissioner, if I may, we should explain the reason that we settled on 3 stories or 35 feet is that that is the existing maximum building standard in the other commercial zoning districts. So there are 5 commercial zoning districts. There's professional office, neighborhood commercial, and what's the third one? 3 of them have, no, 2, those 2 had 35. Oh, and the C1 neighborhood commercial, they currently have 35 feet or 3 stories as their maximum building height standard. And so in order to make everything consistent, we just carried that across the other zoning districts. But we felt that within certain zoning districts, namely the town center district and the C2 general commercial, where you generally have larger commercial buildings, that it was needful to have a mechanism for discretionary approval of a little bit taller buildings. In this case, it would go up to 75 feet or 6 stories. And that would accommodate larger buildings if needed. But in doing that, again, it's common zoning practice that you would provide findings in order to make, if anything that's discretionary should really have some rules around it, which we refer to as findings. Our zoning ordinance didn't have that. As I mentioned, currently the zoning ordinance provides for additional building height through the FAR process. And it's a very odd way of doing it. So rather than do that, we again gave a maximum building height. And then if you want to go above that, you would come to the Planning Commission for and ask, the developer would come to the Planning Commission and ask for a conditional use permit according to certain findings. And those findings, as you saw in the, I don't know if we can go back to that slide. There are, yeah, here are the findings. So these are very objective standards. So we're actually, I think there was another one that talked about the width of the street and the proximity to, back a little bit, proximity to residential development. There we go. And then if there are certain setbacks, all of these 4, if you notice, address that if you have a taller building, we want to be really context sensitive to whatever uses are next to that. So for example, the first one, the reason we identify right-of-way of a principal street is that if you have a very wide street like Calaveras Boulevard, that provides a very wide setback for a taller building. And we're mainly concerned about casting shadows and privacy issues on neighboring property. But if you have a wide street, that puts you far enough away that you won't have an issue of casting shadows. Same thing with, and especially with proximity to low or medium density residential zones. This was a particular concern to members of the community. And so in this case, if you had a taller building that was proposed next to low or medium residential zones, we would not be able to make that finding. And therefore you wouldn't approve a very tall building that was in very close proximity to low or medium density residential. And then same thing with the setback, similar issue like with a wider street. A larger setback will also give you a little bit, it mitigates the any shadows or privacy issues. And then the last one on upper story setbacks. This is a very common practice in zoning now. And if you have a taller building, say you have a 5-story building, above the 3rd or the 4th story, the Planning Commission might require that building to be stepped back 5 feet or 10 feet, again, so that you have, this is in particular relation to casting shadows. So if you pull the building back, then the sunlight can come through to the ground and the surrounding uses a little bit more easily. So I bring all that up and go into a little bit more detail because currently our zoning ordinance does not have any of these findings or this level of detail. So one of the things that I like about the text amendment, the proposed text amendment, is it would then add some very specific information that the Planning Commission would want to have if they're going to approve a taller building in any of the zones where it's now allowed. And last thing I'll say is, at present, because those 3 zones, the 3 commercial zones, highway services, general commercial, and town center, don't currently have a maximum building height. It can conceivably go very tall. They go 10 stories tall. I don't think we would ever necessarily see that here, but it's within the realm of possibility. So we didn't leave it open-ended. Even if you make these findings, the maximum height that it could go to would be 6 stories or 75 feet, as I mentioned. And so it's a very moderate type of development. And again, this would only apply within the commercial zones. And we may have an opportunity to, if we find that this isn't working very well, we will have an opportunity to revisit this issue when we do the comprehensive zoning ordinance update. I don't want to call it a quick fix. I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's needful in the ordinance, but we will have another opportunity to fix anything if it's not quite working the way we expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Director. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, no other questions. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or any comments, this being a public hearing item, I'd like to open up the public forum. Ms. Medina, do we have anyone in the, I don't see anyone here, but anyone in the on Zoom?
Yes, on Zoom, we have 2 community members. We'll start with Mr. John Dahl.
Okay, all right. Mr. Dahl? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. A group of us in the organization called Milpitas Involved Citizens reviewed this proposed update, consolidated our questions and comments, and sent them to Ned and Lillian. Ned responded very quickly and in detail to address our input, and we very much appreciate that. The revisions he proposed do address our concerns. So essentially, in order to preserve the beauty and character of our neighborhoods and taking parking, traffic, water resources, and other utilities into consideration, and as Ned said, views of the hillsides, we wanted to ensure that new buildings taller than 2 stories are prohibited in or adjacent to areas where 1- and 2-story homes already exist. That is our interest, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dahl. Anyone else? Ms. Medina?
We have Mr. Frank Bush.
Okay, Mr. Bush, you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Oh, hello. I've been a resident of Milpitas for 27 years, and I've been following the development that's going on in the area, and reading today's building heights document. I was happy to see that you're taking the size of buildings in context with the surrounding areas, and as Ned said, that it allows better sunlight into the area, and I think that's a great plan. I'm happy to see it being considered for future zoning. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bush. Ms. Medina, are there any other speakers?
Mr. Bill Corby had his hand raised. I'm going to allow him to talk now.
Yeah, I remember he had the initial public forum. I guess we'll open it for him. Mr. Corby, if you, I realize you came in early on. If you have, we welcome you to speak if you want to. Are you there, Mr. Corby? Okay. It looks like he's not. Okay. All right. Oh, there he goes. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Corby. If you can hear us, you're on mute right now. Oh.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
we hear you. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I was having trouble getting off of mute. Sorry. So I'm Bill Corby. I'm a 30-year resident here in Milpitas and active in these Milpitas neighborhood groups for quite a while. And glad we had a lot of discussions going back and forth with Ned, and I think we come up with some pretty good solutions for our issue. Our primary issue, which we've been involved in for quite a while, is in the low-density, single-family home, 1 to 2 story neighborhoods, where you put a commercial zone in the middle of or right adjacent to these neighborhoods. And what we were recommending, and we presented to everybody individually in city council and had these discussions for quite a while, is that we try to keep the height limit on new buildings to 2 stories if it's in the middle of one of these very low density neighborhoods, or if it's directly adjacent to one of these neighborhoods. And Ned had a suggestion that we potentially could just add an additional footnote, would become like footnote number 2 in the commercial development standards. And it would single out having a limit of 2 stories for the low density 1 to 2 story residential neighborhoods. And that would solve our issue if we could include that in this document. And yeah, I wanted to reiterate too, this is very important work, I think, to the quality of life in Milpitas to address height limits. And it's very important work for us to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corby. Ms. Medina, do we have any other public comments?
No, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Medina. Can I get a motion to close the public forum?
Close the public forum.
Okay, got a motion from Commissioner Mosin. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I got a second from Commissioner Galong. I do roll call vote. Commissioner Mosin.
Yeah.
Commissioner Awasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ciardella.
Aye.
Chair Chuan is aye. So 5-0. Public hearing is now closed. Okay. I see Planning Director, if you had any comments, you want to go ahead.
My finger was hovering over that. Yeah. I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments that were made, and I think they're very valid comments. So as you heard, there is a particular concern about taller buildings when any of the commercial districts that we've mentioned, when they abut a lower density single family neighborhood. So one of the ways that we have addressed that and it's for the taller buildings in the ordinance, is to require, or one of the findings that I mentioned was that you would consider the proximity of a taller commercial building next to a residential area. We didn't provide any objective standard there, and what I might suggest, this is a recommendation of the City Council. So if the Planning Commission wanted to, I might suggest that you could provide for or give us a specific setback if the commercial district abuts a residential area. Some zoning ordinance might give a setback of, say, 50 feet or 100 feet. We would have to do a little bit more research on that, so that the building is not adjacent to the residential area. The other thing that we could do, I know some of the public comments were around limiting it, the buildings to 2 stories, and we could do that within a certain area where there's adjacency as well. So there's a couple of different ways of addressing that, but if that was something that the Planning Commission felt was valid, we could do a little bit more research, and then when we take this to the council for discussion, we could mention that discussion was had at Planning Commission, and here's what we've come up with to address it. I think that was everything I wrote down. That would provide just a little bit more specificity and definitely a very objective standard, something that's measurable to protect residential areas from taller buildings not being built right next to them. And I did check with staff really quickly on, I forgot to look it up earlier today, is the maximum building height in all of our, well, in the R1, the lowest density zoning district is 30 feet. So, and that's generally 2 stories, maybe 2 stories with a peaked roof. So that would be consistent with that too.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Planning Director. Do I have any questions or comments from the Planning Commission to staff or? Okay, if there's no questions, can I get a,
So
okay, go ahead, Commissioner Mosen.
through the chair to the director, so you're adding that as a comment from the planning commission or subject to approval from city council. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, this will be a recommendation
have
from the
that.
planning commission, yes, and then final adoption by the council will be in sometime in
Thank you.
August.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's no other questions. Do I have any final comments or deliberations or anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner Mosen.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it for motion to.
Actually, it's on the screen there in front there if you want to take a look at that.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah, motion to approve,
Or adopt. Yeah.
adopt. Motion to adopt zoning text amendment for non-residential building height standards citywide with the suggestion from the city.
Actually, if you look at, I'm sorry, if you go look at the recommendation that's on the screen, like either behind or on the there you go.
Open and close the public hearing, consider the exemption.
The third one there, yeah.
With CEQA and adopt resolution 22-006 recommending that the city council approve zoning text amendments ZA 22-002, amending section of title 11, chapter 10 for the Milpitas Municipal Code to modify and add regulations relating to maximum heights for non-residential building in general commercial C2 highway services, HS and town center TC zones.
Second.
Actually, did you want to add the amendments stated by?
I did add that.
Okay. So you're adding the amendments and then I got a second from, so I got a motion from Commissioner Mosen and a second from Vice Chair Ciardella. So.
And just to confirm, so I think I understand, but the amendment would include the recommendation to the council that the approval include consideration of additional objective standards for taller buildings that are located, commercial buildings that are located next to a lower density residential neighborhood.
Yes, lower density, lower heights for the residential, existing residential 2-story residential areas.
Yeah, and for staff, I guess I would have to add that then for staff to do some additional research into that. And then, so you would recommend that we do some additional research and then include recommendation
of course,
in the council recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are those your
they are.
recommendations as stated by Planning Director? Okay. City Attorney, that works? City Attorney? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And I've got a second from Vice Chair Ciardella. So doing the roll call vote, Commissioner Mosen.
Aye.
Commissioner Wasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ciardella.
Aye.
Chair Chuan is aye. So motion passes. Resolutions adopted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item, legalese. Any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department head to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. Next item, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I second that.
Okay, got a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Mosen and a second from Commissioner Wasti. Roll call vote, Commissioner Mosen. Okay, Commissioner Wasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ciardella.
Aye.
And Chair Chuan is aye. Meeting's adjourned.